Hey guys, welcome back to F1 Podcast. Well, in this video we're going to talk about regulation changes, Max, and as usual every year there's a gamut of them. There's a plethora.
All designed to reduce the cost in Formula 1, but invariably whenever you make a change it makes it more expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
So we've talked about some of the obvious ones in previous videos, like obviously the new tyre supplier and things like that, mate. But let's get down to a little bit of nitty gritty. We're not going to go through every single one, we've just picked out a few.
Yep.
A few of the major ones, Max. So which one first, buddy?
The first one is 2011 will see the return of the 107% rule in qualifying.
Ooh.
So you in, I think it's practice 1, in Q1 I should say, you have to get within 107% of the driver who qualifies fastest in Q1. It's not in Q2 or Q3, it's just Q1.
Yeah.
The return of the 107% rule, Pep, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing in light of a couple of the new teams in Formula 1?
Yeah, I remember years ago when they had it and you had a lot of frankly dodgy teams in Formula 1 who just were way too slow. And I haven't crunched all the numbers, Max, I don't know the exact stats, but I think there was a couple of times last year in 2010 where a driver would have been excluded, but only a couple of times. It wasn't like it happened every Grand Prix or regularly. So, you know, I'm actually a fan of it. I don't want cars puttering around at 5, 6, 7, 10 plus seconds a lap slower.
Yeah.
And if you need to have a rule to make that happen, then the 107% rule does that. Okay. And even last year when these teams were brand new, they were making it like most of the time. So I haven't got a problem with it, mate.
Yeah, okay. Interesting comments. I tend to agree. I'm quite pleased that they've brought it back. Interesting though that in this commercial era that we're in, you know, teams rely on television revenue of having their cars on camera, I guess, and if you're not competing, your car's not on camera. And some of you might say, well, hang on a minute, the amount of airtime that a Virgin or a HRT get is minuscule compared to the other teams. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I guess every little bit of exposure counts. So I thought that was an interesting one, but I agree as well for practical reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we got next, Max?
What do we got next? Okay, the banning of F-ducts. Which I guess McLaren introduced a year or so ago. Yeah. Do you think it's a good move to ban the driver having to take their hand off the wheel and plug a hole? Good thing.
Yeah, I don't think the Formula 1's about taking moving your leg or your hand or your elbow or any other part of your body to make the car go faster. I don't agree with that. And but this is classic Formula 1, classic FIA, where they, something happens and they allow people to do it for, let's say, 8 months or 12 months, then they ban it. Meanwhile, $100 million has been spent, and this happens time and time again. And I don't think they should have had F-ducts in the first place. Yeah. So it's just been a colossal time and money wasting exercise, Max.
Yeah, I never liked them. I didn't like the fact that a driver who already has a hell of a lot to do in the cockpit as it is anyway, was doing 180 mile an hour with their left hand plugging a hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really liked it. I've got to be honest with you. And when you look at this year, mate, KERS also is back this year. It's optional for the teams. Yep. So they'll get their little boost, I guess, from their KERS button. But what are your thoughts on KERS not being compulsory this year?
Yeah, I said a while ago I wasn't a big fan of KERS, and I'm still not really. I agree with the technology, and I think it's a good technology. I just wish that it wasn't KERS wasn't delivered via the button, so you could get energy, you could get horsepower from another source rather than your engine. I like that idea, but I don't like the fact that in order to get that energy you need to push a button. That's PlayStation to me, and I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Yeah, and the movable rear wings, which is another big one this year as well, allowing the driver to change the degrees of the rear wing. Obviously, for those of you who have read a lot about it, you need to be within a second of the car in front. You can't use it to catch someone up. You have to be right there, and then you can use it. But again, I'm not a fan of these artificial ways of overtaking, because then someone will overtake someone and you won't actually feel anything. You won't go, oh, great overtaking. You just think, oh yeah, he pushed a button. Yeah. So I'm not a fan of the movable
rear wing.
Yeah, or any kind of movable option arrow on the car. Really, I just don't. Yeah, I don't.
Fair enough.
to the point?
Well, they've stopped the drivers being able to manipulate the front wing this year. In 2011. That's banned, and of course been replaced, as Pep says, by the movable rear wing. Interesting in the sense that for practice and qualifying, the drivers themselves are able to manipulate the rear wing at will. During the race, they can't use it within the first 2 laps of a race. At the conclusion of the first 2 laps of the race, race control will send out data to all of the cars on the circuit that their rear wing is now able to be used, on the proviso that, as Pep said, they're no greater than a second behind the car in front.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, they're able to use it if they're a second behind to try and gain an advantage, and of course it disengages as soon as the brakes applied. I'm not a great fan, as Pep's just mentioned, about the movable parts on a car, I guess. But it's here this year. Let's give it a go, I guess, and see whether or not it improves overtaking. I'm very sceptical, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Mate, while you're just looking up the next subject, I've just got one more thing I just realised about this movable wing situation. Imagine a circuit like Shanghai, for example, where there's very little overtaking elsewhere, but it's got a long main straight or a couple of main straights. Imagine if this works, the curves and the movable wings. If it actually works, then you're going to have cars overtaking each other on every lap. You know, as the car gets within a second, he'll overtake. The next guy gets within a second or overtake. You know, like it's just going to be so artificial. Yeah. You'll have shitloads of overtaking, but what are you actually watching? Yeah. You know, if it actually works, if they actually get this right, it's going to destroy Formula One.
I guess it depends on where the cars are on the circuit. Whether if you're a second behind and you're going through, say, the Suzuka S's, chances of you passing are probably slim. You wouldn't be able to use it through that. But along the straights, as you were talking about, it could be a distinct advantage. I've yet to see it in theory. I've yet to see it in practice.
We'll see.
I'm more than curious, as I'm sure you all are, as to what the drivers think and feel when they actually put it into practice.
Yeah, in reality,
See whether it does make much of a difference. I'd be very curious to find that out.
Next one.
One of the major changes is gearbox now lasting for 5 races instead of 4, which I thought was interesting. We were looking last year at the engines. The 8 engines that each driver get a year, and for our friends at Red Bull and Ferrari, towards the latter part of the year, it was getting down to the wire with the number of engines they used. And I just wonder if bearing the gearboxes out by an extra race will have much of an impact. Do you think it'll affect the teams with lesser budgets having their gearboxes having the last 5?
It could do, because you're going to build a more conservative gearbox, obviously, to make it last longer. But I was worried when the engines, when they had the limit, and it didn't really affect Formula One that much. In fact, Formula One...
They get added to it.
Yeah, it became a lot more reliable. So an extra race through a gearbox, I mean, you know, people like Max and I and a lot of you guys will know the exact number, but for the new Formula One fans, they don't care how many gearbox people have used or why. So I can see what they're doing. It's money saving, and yeah, why not? Yeah, save a bit of money.
Another interesting change for next year. It's not a rule change, but 20 races in 2011 this year. So a long season. I wonder what the ceiling limit is on F1 races. I wonder if we could get 25.
So what, we had the longest season last year in 2010, and we're going longer again.
Going again.
By the time we hit 2020, Max, there'll be sort of 45 races. You know, Bernie, as we said, you know, if you've got the checkbook and the appropriate location, Bernie will probably sign you up.
By the time you and I are 55, mate, there'll be 52 races a year. There'll be one a week.
Yeah, look, I love having Formula One on for the majority of the year, and despite the fact that I bitch about it in the off season, it's good to have a little bit of a break. Probably the break's a little bit long, but anyway. Yeah, I think 20 is an okay number, or about 20. I think 15's too little, and 25's too many. So you know, 20, yeah, that works for me.
Which is a great segue into my next point. What is it? A curfew's been implemented barring team personnel from accessing the circuit between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m.
Yeah, and the grid girls aren't allowed in to the team hospitality between area. 12 and 6 a.m.
That's right. So I think this curfew is great for these guys, and we're talking about the number of races per season. you got to realise that a majority of these guys go to every race, the mechanics and the like. There's not so much of a rotation in team. And these guys are away from their loved ones for primarily, bar the mid-season break, about 17, 18 weeks of the year. They sort of are traipsing around the world.
Max, I could see them building like some sort of complex near the circuit where they can rebuild an engine between 12 and 6. So they're not at the circuit.
No,
they get to work on the cars. Or
Uncle Ron would do that if he was still in charge.
Part of the cars. I mean, again, it's sort of saving money. They don't want them there all night. They don't want people, in, I guess, sort of unsafe work environments where they're working on the Sunday and whatever.
That's it.
Save money.
A lot of the mechanics, or not a lot of them, but some of the mechanics are also part of the pit crews for the Grand Prix weekends. Can you imagine having no sleep after you've repaired someone's car because they've had a massive off? And then you're the left rear wheel jackman or gunman, I should say, and you're half asleep and you miss taking the wheel off.
But you're a guy who's got a job in Formula 1, so you're the happiest bastard in the world.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm tired, but I'm working in Formula 1, so...
And I think it's good. Give them a break. They're able to work on the cars up until midnight, then they down tools. They can't go back to the garage before 6 AM, and anything else that needs to be done will be done. Or if it's too catastrophic, then that driver won't race the next day. Well,
that's what I was saying. Max and I were sitting out in the balcony.
Unless you've got a T-car, I guess.
Yeah, well, we were chatting a couple of minutes ago, and I was saying, what happens if your car's destroyed? What happens, it's midnight. Oh, I better, just leave this mess until the morning. What do? You have to, I suppose. I don't know.
Bad luck. There's no T-cars anymore. I just mentioned T-cars, but yeah, you're screwed. you don't race. Mate,
Is that it? We've got Max's iPad here, we've got some printouts.
There's heaps of different rules that are pretty boring.
There's a lot of technical ones about safety as well, isn't there?
The double tethers. Which
on the wheels, The tethers don't work anyway, so what's the point?
Look, they're the main ones, I guess. I'm pretty sure that you all knew about them anyway, but it's good to have a bit of a chat. I await with interest, mate, the effects of the movable rear wing. I think that will be very interesting this year. And before we know it, we're going to be racing.
Indeed, mate. It's not long now, really, when you think about it.
No, it's not.
Alright, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon for another video.
Alright, guys. Take care.
Bye.